Now, comrades, you can look anywhere you wish, and I encourage you to do so if you have any doubts, but you will not find anything like this anywhere else in the world. It's not just that other people won't organize it, it's that they cannot organize it. They don't have the ideas that we have, and therefore they don't understand the need for them either. Now, it seems like an eternity ago, but it was only a year ago we had a maybe unassuming or slightly assuming poster campaign in Britain. Posters with a picture of Karl Marx and a very simple message. Are you a communist? Then join us. And I think very few comrades at that point realized what that meant. A complete internal revolution, a shake-up of the organization from top to bottom. The doors of the organization opened to the new radical layers who were moving towards communism, and the leadership at all levels infused with new fresh elements. And externally, an updating of our posture and our pace in order to match the temperament of the radical advanced layers. And my first task today is to evaluate that decision. And here are the facts. In April 2023, we had 4,400 members. By October of last year, we reached the 5,000 members mark. By January, we reached the 6,000 members mark. On April 1st, we had 6,501 members. And I don't have the exact figures, but I can tell you this with almost certain, it's 100% certainty, that in the next few weeks, we will pass the 7,000 members mark. From April to April alone, the international grew by 46%, and in the advanced capitalist countries, that was 58%. We have 26 sections and 12 groups working to become sections, plus another 12 or so slightly looser groups and individuals. So in total, we have activities in more than 70 countries. Our biggest section is in Britain with 1,150 members. That's up 33%, organized in 105 branches and 20 cells. In Canada, we're now by far the biggest organization on the left. On April 1st, we had 734 members. That's a year-on-year growth of 87%. And a week ago, we had 820 members. And I don't know what we have today, but probably another dozen or two more. We have 119 branches in almost all of the major towns and cities of the country. In the US, we had 714 members in April. That's up from 340, meaning a yearly growth rate of 118%. And last week, the comrades reached the 800 members mark, with 90 branches all over the country. In Pakistan, 2 weeks ago, we had 670 members, and the Pakistani comrades are also have also announced a deep-going revolution like other sections. They launched a campaign for a revolutionary communist party, which in a country like Pakistan is like throwing a bombshell into a mass of people. They're launching, but it's a different type than the Islamists do. But it will definitely shock people. And it will get us lots of enemies, but it will get us even more friends. They have a launch congress in December. Since they announced it 2 weeks ago, they've received 200 requests to join. They recruited 35 comrades already, so we have 705 members. In Italy, we had 535 comrades on April 1st. That's up 31% from 1 year ago. And today the section has 556 members, organized in 45 branches. We also have 304 comrades in Switzerland, which is up 69%. We have 300 comrades in Austria, which is up 46%. We have 281 comrades in Germany, which is up 89%. 250 comrades in Sweden, which is up 73%. And as they grew, the Swedish comrades grew into Finland. And we have a comrade here from the Finnish group. We have 27 comrades and 4 branches in Finland. Give them a hand. We also have the Danish section, which I think also deserves a highlight. The section now has 247 comrades, which is a growth rate of 150% year on year. In all of this, actually, I omitted the Brazilian section. Kaya sent me the figures yesterday, but I forgot to put them into my document. Let me just get them for you. So the comrades grew by 66% since the start of the AYEC campaign last summer. We're now present in 18 of 27 states all over Brazil. We have other sections that I can't go through the membership figures, but I'll just read them out. I think we can skip the translation here. That's Argentina, Belgium, El Salvador, France, Greece, Indonesia, Morocco, New Zealand, Nigeria, Pakistan, Poland, Spain, Venezuela, and Yugoslavia. Now, as I said, we also have a series of groups that are working towards becoming sections. One is the Finnish group, which is aiming towards applying for a section, being recognized as a section for next year's World Congress. We had 3 comrades in Finland last year, and 27, as I said, this year. We also have an Irish group. The comrades went from 10 to 36 comrades over the course of the last year. They've just had their first Congress. They're setting up a paper and getting a full-timer, and they're applying to become an official section at the World Congress of next year. Now, comrades, I can go on and on with the figures, but the fact is, regardless of what metric you look at, whether it's the subs or the collections, the paper sales or the number of cadres, we've never been doing as well as we are now. And I think that's sufficient proof that the turn that we decided last year was absolutely correct. But this turn could only have taken place because in the whole of the previous period, we took a decision to systematically turn towards the youth and recruiting and educating a whole layer of cadres. A layer that was educated in our perspectives, in our theory, in our methods, which meant that when the time came, we could make a major turn, basically without any friction. Now, the sects used to be our competition. I don't think that's the case anymore. They're standing... Don't clap for this, it's not worth it. They're standing with their mouths open. Some of them are talking about, the turn away from entrism. I don't know what world they live in. But begrudgingly, all of them have to accept our success, although with a sneer, which is a side dish to everything that the sects. Now, there was a debate on Facebook among some of these people on the left. They were kind of trying to ridicule us. And one of them said, the reason why Socialist Appeal in Britain got ahead of the others was because they used QR code. The other said, no, it was the design of their hammer and sickle. You see, they were trying to be funny. And they were trying to be, they weren't trying, they were being cynical. But one of them said the following. He said, actually, it was 2 other things as well. First, in and after the global financial crisis, they set up student discussion groups, and then they had the very sensible idea of federating them and forming a Marxist student federation. Then they absolutely stuck to the knitting, I don't know how you translate that, all the way through the Corbyn period, refusing to be distracted, and simply did propaganda among the student groups. Of course, this carries with it the risk of passive propagandism, just getting a dig in there. But he corrects himself, or he's forced to acknowledge. On the other hand, I'd very much doubt that they're in the mood to accept advice from people who have been incapable of achieving any sort of growth over the past 15 years. And he's right. We can't learn anything from these people. Because the fact is that no one could did what we did. It's not a technical, it's not a question of organizational methods or orientation. It's a question of ideas. They don't have the ideas that we have. They don't have the perspectives that we have. They don't understand what's happening underneath the surface of society. And therefore, they don't have the forces and the political level of this organization. Because that was exactly what it required to make the turn that we did in the time that we did. Now, we also have an international center, and from there we run the Marxist.com website, which is an unparalleled source of Marxist analysis and theory. Now, since May 2023, we've had 3.1 million hits. And I'll show you, and I go through the top 10 articles of this period, because they're indicative of what the advanced layers are looking for. 1, Manifesto of the Revolutionary Communist International in English. 24,000 hits. We have to say that we publish this manifesto in many languages, and on many websites as well. So this is a fraction of the people who've actually read the manifesto. 2, what is dialectical materialism? 17,300 hits. 3, the statement on the war in Gaza, 12,000 hits. 4, the first article we issued immediately as the Gaza war broke out, 11,300. 5, the French Revolution, 8,700 hits. 6, Marxism versus identity politics, 8,400 hits. 7, what is money? 8,200 hits. 9. The statement on the IMT statement on the Ukraine war, 7,100 hits. And 10, World Perspectives from last year, 7,000 hits. Again, what you see here, what is it that people are looking for? It's not empty phrases, and it's not easy solutions. It's ideas and explanations, and we're the only ones who can offer those. We also launched a podcast in January 2023 called The Spectre of Communism. It's been quite a popular item, even though we haven't had many resources to put in it. We already have about 10,000 followers, and we've had 280,000 plays in total, and 180,000 of these are just since last October. The topmost viewed or listened to episode was the recent one with Comrade Fiona from the British section, 64,000 plays. The second and third ones is Why We Are Communists, 10,000 plays, and the one with Alan Woods on the RCI Manifesto, 7,000 plays. We also have the Theoretical magazine, the In Defense of Marxism magazine, which is the best theoretical magazine anywhere in the world. And it's an immense achievement and a victory for our organization that we can publish it. It is translated into the following languages: to Spanish, French, Portuguese, Italian, Arabic, German, Swedish, Chinese, Indonesian, and Russian. Now, the latest issue was about the African Revolution. It was our best-selling issue so far. We can say that about every single issue, actually. The latest issue with the English and Spanish editions alone together sold 4,200 copies in comparison with 2,900 copies for the April issue of the previous year. And the next issue is a very special one that I personally have been looking forward to. It's about art and culture, which is a weakness of ours. It will have some amazing articles, I can tell you that. There's an editorial by Alan Woods and a main article on Marxism and art, also by Alan. An article by Trotsky on culture and socialism. An article by Comrade Jérôme of the French section about poetry. And an article by Comrade Jesse from the International Center on the Greek tragedy Prometheus Bound. And I'm sure this will have a big impact on the organization. We also have the Well-Read Publication House. We have a stall right out here. You buy the books. Now, this is the only publication house in the world that systematically is dedicated to publishing Marxist literature. In 2020, we sold 4,000 books to sections in total, 4,500. I have to keep an eye on the Italian translation here. It's falsifying what I'm saying. No, last year, we sold 9,500 books. You're clapping too soon, because this year, so far, we've sold 11,700 books. 3,800 of these have been the new Lenin book, which is a very important addition to our arsenal, and a book that all comrades should aspire to read in this year. We've also just republished Lenin's Left-Wing Communism with a new introduction, as well as a collection of articles about Lenin on the imperialist war, with an introduction by Jordi, and they're both available at the stall. And we got two other collections on the way. One of Lenin's writings in 1917, and one with Lenin's writings on the national question. Now, as Fred also explained the other day, we've also bought a center. The cost of £2.4 million. Now, this is at a time where all other left organizations are selling their silverware in order to maintain their apparatus, or what's left of it. But we have expanded into a massive building, which is, I think, 4 times as big as what we had before. It's a fantastic place, and it's actually having an impact on the quality of the work that we're doing. But we're already beginning to feel the squeeze. And in a not too distant future, we will have to expand beyond that building. Now, the most significant event that we intervened as an international the past year was the Palestine movement. And we were the only international force to intervene right from the beginning, and to, throughout the whole process, to maintain a consistent principled position and stand up in the face of slander and repression, while others, even many of the so-called Palestinian Solidarity Movement people, were putting their tails between their legs. We produced dozens and dozens of articles and guidelines to interventions from the international, and we've intervened in the movement in all Western countries and beyond. That's both from the beginning as well as the new phase of the movement, the encampment movement. And we had a great session on that, on those interventions, and we're going to write up the experiences of that and send it out to the international. But just to say, in the US, we intervened on 20 campuses in all major cities. As far as I know, we recruited about 20 people there. In Canada, again, we intervened in more than a dozen encampments all over the country, recruited 30 people. In Britain, we intervened in more than 20 universities and recruited 30 people. In Italy, we intervened in 14 universities in 12 different cities. In Switzerland, we intervened in every encampment in the country. In Sweden also, we intervened in encampments all over the country. And there are many more. In many of these places, we were the ones who took the initiatives to do some of the encampments. And in some places, we got the lead. We became the leading force after intervening politically after the initial period. I don't think any other international organization can boast such a widespread presence in this movement. And this movement fit very well with our work because it represents a massive leap in consciousness. The mood was one of defiance and revolution, and people were angry and they wanted answers. They were hungry for ideas, and we were the only ones who had ideas. And what we saw in every place that we intervened was that as soon as we embarked on a systematic political campaign of patiently explaining our ideas, in almost every single case, we won over the encampment to our ideas in a matter of days. From there, it's a very short step to taking the actual leadership. We only did that in a few places, but we won't make that mistake next time. Now, the petty bourgeois activists who led most of these movements, they've managed to suffocate the movement. Our methods would expand and grow them, and it would create a tribune. It would create a massive tribune and a platform for getting our revolutionary ideas way beyond our immediate periphery and to build the organization. Now, this is an untapped resource from our point of view, and we need to learn from these experiences. But we also need to understand that this is also this has been an excellent tool for the education of the comrades, because in interventions like these, along with constant discussions and theory of tactics, our comrades are forced to develop their own political level. Now, I think we've been far too timid when it comes to these matters. And the potential is far bigger than we think. And I think our enemies see this much better than we do. There's a sectarian, I think he's from Canada. He wrote the following on Twitter. He said, people know that I strive for intellectual honesty on my account. The fact that you have to announce that. So here's the truth, Ruth. The IMT and Marxist.com are becoming the political vanguard of the student anti-war movement. Now you're clapping, comrades, but we are not the political vanguard of the student anti-war movement. But we could be if we take bold measures, because this is definitely within our reach. But in order to reach it, we need to overcome the fear of intervening in something that we don't control entirely. Of course, with the eye of building the organization. Now, in a series of countries now, we are the largest or almost the largest group on the so-called revolutionary left. That's in Canada. Maybe you should skip the translation. We'll skip the translation. Canada, United States, Mexico, Britain, Italy, Austria, Switzerland, Denmark, Sweden, and Pakistan. And that means something. Now, we've also launched parties in the following countries. There's Canada, US, Britain, France, Spain, Italy, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Denmark, Sweden, and Pakistan. We either have launched a party or we're in the process of doing so. And this is also having an impact because the name does mean something. It feels different. It's more concrete, more serious. It's more in line with what the advanced layers want. And it's also something that the media notices in an entirely different way, especially when we have organizations such as the ones we have to put behind them. In some of the smaller countries like Denmark and Switzerland, we're becoming a daily, or regular occurrence on the national media. In other places, we're becoming blips on the radar. Of course, in Britain as well, but that's slightly different case. And this is in line with the general development of the organization, which is moving beyond the small circle stage of our history. In Britain, in the campaign, in the action campaign around Comrade Fiona, we're in a limited area and for a limited period. We're doing real mass work. The comrades have heard the reports. It's fantastic what we're approaching, what we're seeing. And of course, we can't lose our bearings. That's not our primary field of activity. But we are in a position increasingly to do agitational work, and we're reaching a size where we're becoming a visible factor in one country after another. But that also requires a change in our thinking, the way that we think about ourselves. And we must learn to position ourselves as the opposition to the whole of the establishment. That does not mean that we're a mass party fighting for power. We're not even fighting for the masses yet. We're still fighting for the advanced layers, and that fight has only just begun. But it does mean that we should try in our ideas and the way that we present ourselves to polarize the situation between us and the right wing and the establishment. Because with the enormous vacuum that exists and the pathetic state of the left, there's a real hunger for someone answering back. And why shouldn't that be us? We're the only ones who have something to say. And what happened with Comrade Fiona, the way that the interview took off, is exactly an indication of that. And the fact is that we are increasingly taking up this position. In the U.S., we accidentally provoked Jordan Peterson and some of his friends on social media, which meant that they attacked us. And two of our videos went viral. One of them made a tour around the world and got 200 million views in China. In Denmark, we are being regularly attacked by politicians. In Austria, we've been attacked by the whole of the establishment media as the only pro-Palestinian force in the country. And from our point of view, that's excellent. We want more of that. We want them to attack us so that we can expose them. They're a bit arrogant in reality. We know this. We've discussed it in our perspectives. They live in this tiny, isolated bubble far, far away from real life. And they think by attacking us, they're ridiculing us. But in reality, they're making loads and loads of people see that communism is not a dangerous thing. It's the only answer to the situation we're stuck in. That's what's happening with the election campaign in Britain right now. The fact that people are taking stacks of leaflets to hand out in their mosques, that shows us the power of class over everything else and the power of our ideas. Now, from last, I don't have the latest. I don't know if the figures were announced yesterday in the session, but I'll just say the Fiona's social media numbers from last week: 4.6 million impressions on Twitter, 128,000 likes, 35,000 retweets, 370,000 video views on Instagram, 115,000 followers on TikTok, 700,000 likes. I'm sure this is ancient news. And it's just on Fiona's social media profiles, because her videos have had millions and millions and millions of views all across social media on other accounts. And of course, this was no accident. It's a result of the whole previous period of developing our ideas and perspectives, of educating our cadres, which allowed us to make the present turn. And the fact that we saw this particular possibility as in getting into the media and opposing the establishment, and decided to do it 6 months ago at the last IEC. And this is the first result. So although you can say it was lucky in a way, but it just happens that you get very lucky if you do the work systematically. But the point is, so it's not really luck at all. But we can't know when and how these things will happen. And the lesson in all of this is to appraise every situation like this immediately. And when you see an opportunity, you put aside your plans and you put all forces to the point of attack, and you utilize the opening to the utmost. Our comrades, it's been a fantastic year, and this turn has been a complete success. But every time you take up something new, there is a tendency to exaggerate things. It's a natural part of life. When you learn to ride a bike, I don't know about you, when I learned, I had these support wheels, and I would ride like this. And then I would turn over and fall over like this. Until I gradually learned to balance and find an equilibrium. And that's the important thing, that you get to that equilibrium. Now, part of this shake-up of the organization was a war on routinism. It's like routinist has become a curse word in the organization. You're afraid if someone calls you a routinist. You have to be on your toes. But comrades, you can have a routinist war on routinism. You see, in my lead-off last summer, I chose my words very carefully. I said we need to reevaluate what we used to do. Reevaluate everything. That means thinking about them, and changing what's necessary. Now, sometimes that seems to have been interpreted as to throw everything out. So we are against long and dry lead-offs, so we should have very short lead-offs or no lead-offs at all. We're against the routine branch agendas, so we should have no agenda at all. Now, the point, however, is in reality, you can have a 45-minute lead-off and a branch meeting with the same agenda and it could be fully in line with the IAC spirit. Because there's a point the point is, what do the comrades get out of it? Do comrades leave every meeting feeling inspired and having gained new insight? Has the chair involved everyone in the discussions and the decisions? Do everyone have a responsibility? And do everyone know their concrete tasks before the next branch meeting? Then you would have a great branch. You can also have a branch meeting with no agenda and no lead-off, which is an entirely routinist affair. Because being a routinist doesn't mean that you just stop doing things that you used to do. It means doing things without thinking. Now, there is another notion that's come up, which is, I've heard this from several sections, in several sections, not from several. This is this idea that the old organization was about theory and discussing theory, but we are a fighting organization. We're a fighting party, like Fight Club. A fight party. I don't know what a fighting party means, to be completely honest. I don't know what it actually means concretely. Maybe I'm sure comrades had the best intentions saying this. I don't know what it means. I've also heard comrades say that the old methods were the Marxist societies and theoretical discussions. But now we just ask people to join the party. Because we're not routinists like in the past. We ask them to join. That's what we do. I'll tell you a secret. In every Marxist society meeting I was at, we asked people to join the party. No, the thing is, look, we are a revolutionary organization and we've always been one. And we will always remain one. At least that's what I'm fighting for. And our activities might change their character slightly, but our basic fundamental essence remains the same. And what did Lenin say about revolutionary party? He said, without revolutionary theory, there can be no revolutionary movement. Lenin didn't come one day and say, yes, now we've built the Cato organization, now we need to go join the fight. No more discussions. His whole life was one theoretical struggle after another. And that was the main difference between the Bolsheviks and everyone else. And that's the only real difference between us and everyone else. If you take that away, we're no different from many of the sects. They don't scream about communism, or they scream about revolution or resistance. They get stuck into movements and strikes and this and that. But they don't achieve anything because they don't have the ideas that we do. And what was our strength in the Palestine movement? It was precisely our ideas. Where we came in and we didn't embark on a political campaign, the more we resorted to sloganeering and just kind of participating, the less of an impact did we have. Now, Trotsky explained that the first duty of a revolutionary is to understand the causal sequence of events and to find somewhere in that sequence one's own place. We have this massive, great historical process, and what we need to do with ourselves, everyone around us, is to acquire an understanding of what that means and where we belong in that process. And that is what gives us our endless optimism, our energy and determination. That's the real power of ideas. Now, another thing we've discussed, very, very important, is how do we present our ideas? You know, we can't turn up to a student encampment where people don't know anything about Marxist theory. Say, what we are seeing is the mode of production rebelling against, the means of production rebelling against the property relations. We need to be able to connect our ideas, our real ideas, without watering them down, in simple language to the layers that are coming up now. And it's not just when we intervene in the movement, but also inside the organization. We should not have 45-minute lead-offs, because most people cannot pull off a 45-minute lead-off without losing people. You end up talking to yourself. No, you need to think about all of your lead-offs and all of your interventions and all of your discussions. Think about what is it you're trying to say, what is it you're trying to convey, and do that in the simplest and most engaging manner possible. Now, sometimes that is interpreted to mean that all we want to do is sound interesting and engaging and radical. And comrades forget that the most important part of that is not the form or the delivery, but it's the content. The point is not to sound radical. You can sound radical without being radical at all. What did Marx say about being radical? He said being radical means going to the root of the matter. There are many, many people who are being radicalized today. They call themselves communists. They're filled with class hatred, which is a good thing. But we need to fill that hatred with content. We need to raise those pure emotions to the level of a science, of scientific socialism, and give a rational explanation for them. If all that was needed was just pure gut feeling, then we wouldn't have need for a party. There would be a communist revolution spontaneously. But if you are bold in content, you can be very, very mild in manner and still have a massive impact. Now, comrades, this conference has been the crowning achievement of the past year's qualitative leap. And it's also a mental milestone for us. It's also a mental milestone for us. We must close the doors to the previous stage. And that's first and foremost in here. And we must learn to think bigger. At the International Center, we think that means we also need to expand the center and the scope of our activities to build an international center worthy of a revolutionary communist international. At the moment, we have 21 full-timers, but to run this massive complex organism of thousands of members, the complexity of the work alone is advancing faster than the size of our full-time staff. And we believe that we need bold measures. So we made a plan to take on 17 new full-timers in the next year and a half. Part of these will be to support existing responsibilities, and part of them would be to expand into new areas that we don't have systematic work in. We will take on an education full-timer, a social media full-timer, an audio-video department, web designers. Some of you might notice that Marxist.com is a little bit old in its design, not in its ideas. Got the newest ideas, but we don't have the forces to redesign a new page. It's impossible with our current forces. We need also an office manager, because which has become an important political task of making sure this massive building is running as smoothly as possible. And we also aim in the next period to develop regional bureaus to follow up different parts of the world. And this will massively improve the work of the International. But it's a medium-term work. It's not something that can happen immediately. This is just the beginning. And we believe that in order to fund this, we should dip into the fighting fund as well, because while we're sure that in not so long from now we can afford all of these full-timers, we can't afford them on the budget as it is now. Which means that for every £31,000 more that you guys donate, we can take on one more of these comrades. And I want to say that the collection is not closed. In fact, we got a report that in Sweden the comrades raised another 1,015 euros. And the Danish comrades at their watch party raised 3,660 euros. So far, the final amount is 485,000 euros. But I think we can reach 500,000. That would be a nice round number to reach, wouldn't it? And with all the comrades here and back home, it might be possible. Now, comrades, this is a historic moment for our movement. We voted on the manifesto last Monday, another key weapon in our arsenal. And it was passed, I should add, without any serious disagreements. Now, the sects do not understand this. Why don't you have any more disagreements? For them, the discussion is not really important, or rather, the ideas are not really important. The more disagreements you have, the better and the more democratic an organization you are. Well, comrades, anyone is free to say anything they wish in this organization. You know, just to say about these people, they have plenty of disagreements, but they have no ideas whatsoever. You can say anything you want in this organization, and we'll discuss it out. And we've done that many times in the past, patiently and seriously, and that's why we are where we are today. A few weeks ago, I was at the British Congress. There was a comrade there, I think he's from Wales. It was his first Congress. And he said something very interesting. I hope I'm quoting him exactly. It's more or less along these lines. He said, I've been a member of the Labour Party for many years. He said, I've seen Congresses. I've seen herd mentality. But this is something different. This is conviction. Yes, comrades, what we have is a deep going unity of conviction, which is the most powerful form of unity. And it's a conquest that we're proud of. It's a result of decades of effort. Yes, and many, many, many discussions in which the level of the whole international has been raised. I think Alan said the other day, he and some other comrades started out 30 years ago being the weakest force on the left. No apparatus, very little of full-time stuff, if anything. What set us apart? It was our ideas. They ridiculed Alan and Ted for writing Reason in Revolt and Bolshevism because they ridiculed our emphasis on theory. they were real activists and revolutionaries, you know. You see, they don't know what they're talking about. They didn't realize that they're attacking our strong side. And you can't explain this to them because you cannot argue with ignorance. But that is what brought us where we are today. Every step of the way. And it's the power of our ideas which is now revealing itself more and more intensely in direct correlation with the intensity of the crisis of capitalism. And we're beginning to gain an echo. It's still early days. But one door after another is opening up for us. It's not because we are clever or lucky. We are clever, but I guess we are clever. But it's not because we're lucky or we're slick. Not because we have nice designs and big banners. Not because we have a massive center now in London and centers all over the world with hundreds of full-timers. We are proud of that, but that's not the reason. No, it's because of our ideas. That's the only justification for our existence. And now we are exiting our prehistory. And of course, it would be foolish to go too far and get big-headed, to overstretch ourselves and to relegate theory and propaganda work. No, theory is much more important now as a guide to action. But it would be equally foolish to stay timid and to think small. We need to get rid of that mentality. We need to think big. We need to be bold. And it's inevitable that we will make exaggerations and mistakes, but we can overcome these and we can learn from them. There's comrade, I was talking with comrade Alejandra, I think, from Canada, who was, we were discussing our intervention in the movement, in the encampment movement. I said maybe we had been a little bit too timid. And she said something very profound. She says, you know, it's like we've been swimming at the shallow end of the pool. But now we have to go on the deep end, and it's a little bit scary. I think that's a very exact metaphor. We have to leave the safe shores that we're used to. But we also have to remind ourselves that our safety was never our, organizational method of work. That wasn't what was kept keeping us safe. It was the solid rock of Marxist theory, which we will have with us at all times. Goethe said, mankind errs as long as he strives. Mankind errs as long as he strives. Yes, we will making mistakes is a part of learning. We have the most powerful ideas here. And in the next period, our task is to take them out into the world, into every school and every university, into every neighborhood and every workplace, and boldly announce that the Revolutionary Communist International is here.
Thank you, Hamid. Thank you, comrades. I wanted to highlight something that Hamid said. The collection so far has raised 485,000 euros and a bit. But I think there should be no reason why we can't get to 500,000. So comrades in the room, think how much money you have left. Think if you have anything left in your credit cards as well. And if you can make an additional donation. Contact comrades in your branches, in your districts, back at home. Tell them how extraordinary this meeting has been, whether they can make a donation, big or small. For those watching from home and watch parties, the same applies to you. Let's see if we can get to 500,000. Now, for those in the room, please stay in your seats. There's an important announcement. For those at home, we're going to a half an hour break. From Britain, we'll be followed by Helene from Canada.
Comrades, the RCP in Britain is carrying out pioneering work at the moment, and in the last 12 months we've seen many exciting developments. Only weeks after our founding, we've been thrust into a national election campaign, which will be the making of our party. Just over a year ago, we were around 800 comrades. Today, we're 1,150. Over the course of 2023, we increased the national average sub by 68%. We've massively expanded our social media presence, largely as a result of Fiona's viral videos, and we further expanded our full-time apparatus, including taking one temporary full-timer for the election campaign. But growth has slowed down for us in the past few months, which is to be expected after a period of explosive recruitment. Ultimately, the way to address slowing growth and retention is cadre development, because this underpins all other areas of our work. Over the last few months, we've seriously stepped up our cadre schools nationally. We've organised regional cadre schools led by EC and CC members, and in some places like Wales and the Midlands, they've organised regional residential cadre schools, a bit like this event. In the British office, we've introduced all office lead-offs and reading groups, and we're encouraging all the full-timers to speak at and lead these discussions. We emphasise to the comrades that political education must be linked to to events and perspective. For example, when George Galloway won the Rochdale by-election, the EC produced the documents on connecting with consciousness, which we circulate. As Hamid mentioned, we've just republished Lenin's Left-Wing Communism, and we're proposing a talk on this book at our upcoming summer camp, which is another national cadre school. In relation to the election campaign itself, the day-to-day work of campaigning presents another opportunity for education. Right now, a full-timer in London is coordinating a team of 25 comrades who are phone banking and following up our social media accounts for contact. And all of these comrades are being trained on the transitional method and proper contact follow-up. It's not that practical work is a substitute for education, because that's not the case, but that political education is being linked to events taking place. Just like how the Palestine protests were a great opportunity to educate our comrades on Palestinian history, the role of the state, and imperialism. We're producing more national education bulletins than ever before. These are sent to the entire membership. The latest one takes many lessons from the Cardiff comrades on cadre development. For example, these comrades have linked the fundamentals of Marxism to their interventions on the ground. At a recent Palestine encampment meeting, they actually gave a talk on Marxist philosophy to show how consciousness and perspectives can change rapidly. Now, I think this is exactly the type of thinking we want to encourage from the comrades. Another very important thing the Cardiff comrades have done is to spend time socially integrating their comrades. Hours of extra education of the comrades comes through socials and informal meetings, discussions in the pub, after branch, or at organised social. I personally still remember my very first branch meetings in East London 12 years ago, where I was with many of the comrades that are in this hall today. Branch discussions would run over by 45 minutes, by half an hour, because far too many good points were being made to allow the chair to stop them. We'd all have a drink afterwards. Alan would start cracking jokes about the Italians in World War I, barking like dogs for scraps at the imperialist table, and everyone enjoyed the atmosphere, the jokes like that, apart from Fred. He wasn't laughing at all. But the point is, I have nothing but warm memories of those times. And I still remember today what I learned in a lot of those discussions. Above
Good afternoon, comrades. Hamid said we've had a growth of 66% since summer last year. And this growth has been the product mostly of the AIAC campaign. The youth in Brazil is also looking for communism. Furthermore, because we had a far-right president who would brand all his enemies as communists. So thank you, Bolsonaro, because you've pushed a big layer of the youth towards communism. As has happened in other sections of the International, we decided to change our name to connect with the radicalization of the youth. We are now the Internationalist Communist Organization. We also changed the name of the paper. It is now called Communism. And to attract the youth, all the pages are colored. In Brazil, we have a national unity government, Lula government. Workers voted for Lula to defeat Bolsonaro. But this government is continuing its anti-worker policy, the policies of the previous governments. And it is launching new attacks against the youth and the working class.
En este momento no hay grandes manifestaciones de masa en Brasil.
There are no big demonstrations in Brazil right now.
Las direcciones sindicales juegan un papel para bloquear la voluntad de lucha de la base.
Because the trade union leaderships are acting as a brake to the will to struggle of the rank and file.
Pero el proceso molecular de revolución sigue desarrollando.
But the molecular process of revolution is still taking place.
Huelgas de maestros y funcionarios públicos están creciendo.
Strikes of teachers and public sector workers are developing.
Algunas con la base entrando en shock con la dirección.
We sometimes see the grassroots clashing with the leadership.
Hay una campaña ida espontáneamente por la internet,
There is a spontaneous campaign that has spread across the internet,
se llama Vida Además del Trabajo.
which is called Life Beyond Work,
Lucha por la reducción de la jornada laboral.
which is fighting for a shorter working week.
Pocos meses ha conseguido más de 1 millón de asignaturas de firmas en una petición pública dirigida al Congreso Nacional.
In a few months, it got 1 million signatures for a petition to Parliament.
Nosotros estamos en la coordinación nacional de este movimiento
We form part of the national coordinating body of this movement,
y nuestros militantes hacen esta campaña en los lugares de trabajo con la presencia mayoritaria de la juventud.
and our comrades are taking this campaign to workplaces with the involvement of the youth
Para abrir nuevos contactos,
to find new contacts.
combinándola con la campaña Eres Comunista.
And we are connecting this with the AYAC campaign.
En los últimos días de esta semana eran manifestaciones santas de ciudades
Last week, big protests broke out in a number of big cities
a partir de una amenaza del Congreso Nacional de aprobar una ley iguala a la mujer que realiza el aborto
to protest against a new draft law that would equate abortion.
a alguien que comete un homicidio,
Yes, it would equate abortion with murder.
pudiendo hacer con que la mujer que hace un aborto va a tener una condena de hasta 20 años cárcel.
So women who abort would face as many as 20 years in prison.
Nuestra perspectiva es que va a tener una intensificación de la lucha de clases en Brasil.
Our perspective is that the class struggle will intensify in Brazil,
Para este escenario estamos nos preparando.
and we are preparing ourselves for this perspective.
Nuestra organización creció,
Our organization grew,
pero podemos crecer más.
but we can grow further.
Después de ese salto cuantitativo,
After this quantitative leap,
necesitamos de un nuevo desarrollo cualitativo.
we need a qualitative transformation.
O sea, la consolidación y formación teórica y política de los nuevos militantes que hemos ganado,
That is to consolidate and train up politically and ideologically the new comrades,
educándoles en la teoría marxista
to educate them in Marxist theory
y con la experiencia en la acción en la lucha de clases.
and train them in actual practical experience in the class struggle,
Para que esta juventud que hemos ganado mire el mundo con los ojos de la clase obrera.
and to educate this youth to see the world through the eyes of the working class.
Así vamos a formar una nueva capa de cuadros.
This is how we will train up a new layer of cadres.
Acá, para esta Escuela Mundial Conferencia, tenemos 530 inscriptos de Brasil para seguir en línea.
530 people signed up in Brazil to follow this school online.
Estamos organizando hoy la transmisión colectiva en 8 ciudades de Brasil.
And we're having watch parties in 8 Brazilian cities.
Realizamos una escuela de cuadros nacional en noviembre pasado.
We held a national cadre school last November
Discutió el marxismo y la guerra
where we discussed Marxism and war
y el papel histórico del stalinismo y las tentativas de reavivirlo hoy.
and the historical role of Stalinism and the attempts to revive it today.
En noviembre también realizamos un importante acto contra las guerras imperialistas
In November, we also held an important event against imperialist war,
en Ucrania y Palestina,
the wars in Ukraine and Palestine,
convocado conjuntamente con el Partido Comunista Brasileiro Reconstrucción Revolucionaria.
that we called jointly with the Brazilian Communist Party Revolutionary Reconstruction.
La organización que fue formada por los estados de manera burocrática por la dirección del Partido Comunista Brasileño.
The organization that was set up by those who had been expelled bureaucratically by the leadership of the Brazilian Communist
Y
Party.
que tiene Iván Pinheiro,
where Iván Piñeiro which Iván Piñeiro is part of.
Que enviou un saludo para nuestra conferencia mundial que ha en primer día.
The comrade who sent greetings as was mentioned on the first day.
Pierre es uno de los dirigentes de esta organización.
Iván Piñeiro is one of the leaders of this organization.
Vamos a realizar un campamento de la juventud en octubre.
We'll hold a youth camp in October.
Está centrado en retomar el legado político y teórico de Lenin.
Which will have as its focus to reclaim the political and theoretical legacy of Lenin.
Estoy seguro que vamos a tener nuevos avances en la construcción de la Organización Comunista Internacionalista.
I am sure we will make big advances in the building of the Communist Internationalist Organization.
La sección brasileña de la Internacional Comunista Revolucionaria.
The Brazilian section of the Revolutionary Communist International.
Este paso audaz que estamos decidiendo hoy.
This bold step that we are taking today,
para que seamos el núcleo para reconstruir una internacional revolucionaria con influencia de masas.
So that we become the core for the rebuilding of a revolutionary international that has an influence among the masses.
El Partido Internacional de la Revolución.
The World Party of Revolution.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I think we can agree to send greetings from the RCI founding conference to the newly established Revolutionary Communist Party of Brazil, this organization that we have fraternal relations with. And without any further ado.
Well, comrades, what a great end to a great week. I mean, all the comrades spoke very, very well. Won't comment on everything, but there was one thing I think that stood out, which I think all sections should note, which was the Swedish summer offensive. I don't know if you've seen the Swedish paper. Very nice paper. They have this kind of invasion map where they've designated which towns and villages and so on that the different branches are going to conquer over the summer. And I think all sections should consider introducing the same idea. Now, I received a question by comrade, what was it? Walter from Sweden, that how do we educate the new comrades and how do we find time for it? That's the $1 million question, isn't it? But I think that's a very good question. You know, we did pass a resolution at last year's World Congress, which is called The Power of Ideas, and it's precisely about that question. We circulated it before this event, and I think if any branch has not read it and thoroughly discussed it, they should do so in the next period. But to give a brief answer, when we get a new comrade in, of course, we give them tasks, we give them a field of work, something they can get engaged in, and we make sure they're building the organization, selling the paper, finding contacts, going to contact meetings. And then you have the secret ingredient. Don't tell this to anyone. Then you talk with them. You spend time with them, you call them, and you listen to them, and you listen to their questions, and then you patiently answer them one by one. There was a Greek philosopher, Plutarch. He said that the mind is not a vessel to be filled, it's a fire to be kindled. Which means what? Which means you can't stuff the comrade's brain with information and ideas. I know you've all done that. I've done it. But it doesn't work. You can't push comrades to read. You can't force them to read. That's what happens when comrades set up reading groups. Often they set up the reading group for the wrong reason. It's to force people to read, to make them feel responsible. That feels like homework, and nobody likes homework. Well, some people do like homework, but I don't like homework. And you can't tell them to read theory either. You know, you have comrades saying theory is very important because it explains everything. And if we study theory, we'll know a lot of things. That's empty. You know, Alan explained how Marx wrote that he didn't want to write a preface to his Capital. And Hegel made the same point. He said you can't preface philosophy because that means undermining the ideas. You have to give the comrades the ideas. So instead of telling them about theory, you should just give them theory. And you start with what people are interested in. Often you see comrades start with what people are not very good at. And it feels overwhelming. But you have to start with what people get joy out of. And then you support them and you feed them articles and so on. And you light that fire. and you inspire them with ideas. But if you want to inspire people with ideas, you also need to be inspired yourself. It means you need to think, you need to prepare yourself politically for every branch meeting, before every contact meeting, before every talk you have, conversation you have with a comrade. You need to make sure you're not just going on autopilot. That you're thinking, oh, what interesting angle or what interesting idea can I convey in this brief moment? And then drip by drip, you don't fill the cup, but you light that fire. Mixed metaphors here. But that means a constant inner struggle with yourself to push yourself beyond your current knowledge. That's the key to education. If you're inspired, you inspire people around you. And then they will go and read, and they will read much more than you could ever stuff them and force them to read in a reading group. Now, there was a series of points that were made, which I thought was, I thought about it as I was listening to this. And I think, sometimes we kind of sleepwalk a little bit. And many people have said revolutionaries can be the most conservative. I was listening to the reports that Comrade Laura gave from the US. These incredible workplace reports. These factory exposures, that's essentially what it is, that Lenin talked about. I don't know if it's been sent out in the bulletin or not, but we should definitely write up this experience and send it out to all the comrades. And then I heard Florian talking about the school students. A comrade turns up with some leaflets about Palestine. He's overwhelmed by school students, so much that the police comes and break up this illegal protest. And then I hear and read the anecdotes coming from the election campaign in London. This is just a couple of the quotes. One person says, "Why are we spending millions on wars across the pond when kids are dying here? What is the UK spending? 1 million per kid killed?" And someone else says, "I work for the NHS. We work like dogs and we don't get anything. They give what they like to Ukraine and to Israel, but they don't see what's happening here." And comrades tell me that it's far from obviously everyone who opened the door when we knock, we're not home or whatever. But of those who actually respond, like open the door, around half of them are highly sympathetic to us. Now, what does all this tell us? We always talk about, yes, there's a huge vacuum, but are we actually thinking about how huge this vacuum is? We talk about, someone labeled them the golden layer. The people who see themselves as communists. But comrades, there's an even bigger layer who do not see themselves as communists yet. What we need to learn is to connect our ideas with them. And we're not able to do that yet. Which means that we need to learn to listen to them, to hear their complaints, but we also need to learn their language, which is not our language yet, in order that we can connect our ideas with them. And if we manage that, then we're talking about a completely different league of development than what we've experienced even in the past year. And there's another lesson here. We have to teach ourselves to feel the mood. And what's the feeling we get from these reports? It's that in every single country, underneath the surface, there is a revolutionary mood brewing, and something huge, something big is being prepared. We don't know how and when, in which forms it's going to express itself, but we know that when it comes, the whole world will be turned upside down. And I think, what was it, the comrade from France, what was her name? I forgot the name. Sibyl said it very well. So that this generation will not wait for us. I think hearing these reports, we really have, we talk about a sense of urgency, and we can say it with a complete lack of urgency. We are in a race against time, comrades, because we need to prepare our forces for when this movement when this tsunami arrives. That must be the top priority for every section, every branch, and every comrade. We need to take this very seriously, because the work that we do now, right now, will completely decide the opportunities that we will have in the next period. 1 to 1, or rather 1 to 100,000. If it's a completely different thing to face a revolution with a few hundred comrades, or with 5 or 10,000. And it's not just to have the members, we need to have the cadres. One of the comrades asked a very, very good question, a comrade from Canada, Jacob, I think it's. Because we talk about cadres, but no one actually knows what a cadre is. I think that's a very, very good question. We should refrain from just throwing around these words. But in military terms, what is a cadre? That's where it comes from. It's the skeleton of the army, which is empty in peacetime, but which is composed of officers at all levels who can train up a unit independently. who can train them up and lead them into battle independently. That must be the goal of every single comrade that we recruit. To conquer the basics of Marxism, to learn our organizational principles, and to throw themselves into the different struggles and to different fields of work, and learn to connect with the workers and youth that are coming towards us. The final point I wanted to make, I was thinking yesterday to myself, I know a lot of people who are not communists, and one thing I see in all of them is this perpetual feeling of frustration, alienation, and not really having any disorientation. And they go from one thing to another, trying to find happiness some way, but it always kind of escapes them. And I realize, I mean, maybe a lot of comrades have realized this. I've realized this many times, but you always realize it on a deeper level, I guess. We are extremely lucky to have a guiding principle that gives us insight, that gives us insight into the way that the world works. Hegel said that an ignorant man is not free because what confronts him is an alien world. But we're not confronted by an alien world. We feel at home in the world because we understand it and we realize what's necessary. And that's what gives us our energy. And it gives us an unparalleled advantage over everyone else in this society. It's a guiding principle that allows us to go about the world with a deep sense of belonging. Belonging to the world, belonging to an international organism which works across the planet with the same principle, belonging to the general course of history, which has brought humanity to this fateful moment, belonging to the traditions of Marx, Engels, Lenin, and Trotsky, who carry the seeds of a future society, and which is now the seed that we carry in this organization. And I want to end with a quote by Trotsky on the founding of the Fourth International. It's a bit long, but I think it's worth it. He says, "The great events which rush upon mankind will not leave any of these outlived organizations one stone upon another. Only the Fourth International looks with confidence at the future. It is the World Party of Socialist Revolution. There never was a greater task on the earth, and upon every one of us rests a tremendous historical responsibility. Our party demands each of us totally and completely. Let the Philistines hunt their own individuality in empty space. For the revolutionary to give himself entirely to the party signifies finding himself. Yes, our party takes each one of us wholly, but in return it gives every one of us the highest happiness, the consciousness that one participates in the building of a better future, that one carries on his shoulders a particle of the fate of mankind, and that one's life will not have been lived in vain. The fidelity to the cause of the toilers requires from us the highest devotion to our international party. The party, of course, can also be mistaken. By common effort, we will correct its mistakes. In its ranks can penetrate unworthy elements. By common effort, we will eliminate them. New thousands who will enter its ranks tomorrow will probably be deprived of necessary education. By common effort, we will elevate their revolutionary level. But we will never forget that our party is now the greatest lever of history. Separated from this lever, every one of us is nothing. With this lever in hand, we are all. Thank you, comrades.
RCI, 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 RCI. Rosa, bandiera rossa, avanti o popolo. Bandiera rossa trionferà, bandiera rossa la che trionferà, bandiera rossa la che trionferà, bandiera rossa la che trionferà, che viva il comunismo e la libertà. Okay, comrades. I will say that the feeling of the room is clear, but still I think it's worth taking an actual vote. After a week of discussions, after many months of discussing the manifesto of the RCI, in hundreds of meetings in dozens of countries across the world, after voting the RCI manifesto, which is our guiding principles and statement of ideas at the beginning of this week, time has now come to formally vote on the launching, on the founding of the Revolutionary Communist International. So, wait, I think I'll take delegates and visitors all together. So can I see all those in favor of founding the Revolutionary Communist International? Anyone against? Any abstentions? Okay, comrades, that's unanimous. We have an international. RCI, 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 RCI. In a sense, this is the culmination of work, but it's also the beginning of more work in the next period. And now we have a number of announcements. Number one, the social tonight is at 9 p.m. in this room. Get ready for the singing. I know there's some comrades who've been rehearsing and there might be some surprises. We also have a wide range of items in the lost and found, which I will repeat. Huawei earphones. What this is. Seems to be like an external hard drive. The keys for room 207. Anti-fascist pin. The keys for someone's house. Hair clip, green. Some sunshades. I think this is an Apple Mac cable, USB cable for charging. And this is the most surprising thing we've ever been handed. Someone found in the toilets at the back a 50-euro note. Yes. No? It's like mine. Okay. I mean, if no one claims it, it goes to the collection. Is it yours, really? No. Okay. Well, then it's not yours. What's that? Okay. Oh, 50 euros for the Sri Lankan comrades. Very good. Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's a few other things I need to announce. There's some more updated figures for the collection. See if I can find it. Yeah. The total figure for the collection as of now is 21 cents. And Okay. Before I say the total figure, this includes an additional donation of 10 euros from Mexico and 100 from Yugoslavia. Okay, so the total figure is now 488,930 euros. Oh, there's also another item of lost and found. Is a half ring, silver. There's another thing we need to go through is the raffle of the Mexican section, the Lenin and Trotsky raffle.
Well, thank you everybody for your collaboration to the Mexican section. And well, let's go.
Before I call Alan to give his closing remarks, there is something we need to do, and that is to give thanks to everyone who's made this magnificent event possible. And that includes the Italian comrades who have worked for weeks and in some cases months to secure the venue, organize the logistics, and many other tasks. The full-timers of the International Center who have also been working on the technical side, on the registration, on preparing the website, preparing the venue, and all the other details. Sorry? Apparently, Comrade Silas from Denmark played a key technical role in that kind of preparation. Everyone, all the translators who did a magnificent job and allowed this to be followed by many different countries. All the comrades who chaired the meetings. The comrades who worked at the bar in the evening in the shifts. The many comrades who didn't know had any skills but became sound engineers and streaming technicians overnight. All the comrades who prepared lead-offs and interventions made this an excellent, very high-level political meeting. And everyone who attended here and at home through watch parties in many different countries. So if everything is ready, I'd like to call Alan to give his closing remarks to this excellent meeting.
How much?
50 in total.
50.
Because Hamid spoke shortly.
He's a scoundrel. Right. Oh. I am now informed that I have an infinite amount of time to speak.
Bad mistake.
I thought I had 5 minutes. Well, anyway, Einstein does say that time is relative. It's not my experience, however. Now then, I think it is superfluous for me to say that this has been a really outstanding conference. And I say that as one that, in the course of my long and eventful life, I've been to many conferences in many countries. Some of them were quite inspiring. But I can honestly tell you that I have never in my life seen such an inspirational meeting as this one. And that fills me, as it should fill every one of you, with colossal confidence in the future of our organization. This is an entirely new beginning. With this conference, this historic conference, we now have closed decisively the early embryonic phase of development of this tendency. That's finished. And we now enter into a very new and very exciting stage. You see that You see that in Britain. And what's the real significance of this marvelous report that was given from Britain? For the first time ever in our history, we are now engaged in a direct dialogue with the masses, something which just a few years ago would have seemed to be beyond our reach, it would seem to be impossible. But here we are, right in the center of attraction of British politics, and even many other countries we are arriving at the same position. And in the British case, as you all know, it began, the decisive turning point was this famous interview of a relatively young comrade, by the way, Fiona. I mean, he is experienced, he's a trained comrade, and that's the importance of training. Come back to that perhaps later on. She was interviewing this, how shall I characterize her, without falling into the cardinal sin of political incorrectness, with great difficulty. She is generally considered to be an extreme right-wing, the most extreme right-wing politician in Britain. But I think that's a little bit unkind. She actually stands a little bit to the left of Genghis Khan. With apologies to that great Mongolian leader. He's quite a clever chap, really, in his own murdering way. But what really struck a chord with millions of people, literally millions, how is it possible for a young girl, she is a young girl, absolutely destroy this experienced, polished, professional politician? She was completely destroyed, by the way. Actually, Ben Gliniewski was sitting in the next room, off camera, and in the same room there was Braverman's team of advisors, you know, the people that tell her what to say and what to think. And they were in a state of panic. They were saying things like, "We're losing it! We're losing it! This is going badly. We're not going to get this back again." And they were quite right. But you see, and I'll say this to you. You might not believe this, but I think it's true. Even the most inexperienced young comrade in our ranks, that's been a member for a few months, you will find is on a higher level than even the most polished bourgeois politician. That's a fact. But, of course, there are lessons. There are lessons. And by the way, I think communists now, they're looking towards Britain and they, well, what a marvelous place Britain is. It must be great. The people must be great. Well, the Welsh are great. It's true. I can't speak for the rest. They're all right. But what you must remember, what you don't know, not so long ago, the British section passed through a very, very difficult phase, very difficult. And frankly, was not in a, if I'm honest about it, was not in a particularly good state. Not so long ago, I remember that. And yet it was all turned around, gradually turned around, and any section can be turned around. Any problem can be solved if we put our mind to it. But you see, revolutionary politics is a science and an art. Strategy, perspectives, that's a science. But tactics, my friends, is an art. Can't be learned from books either. Something that comes from experience. And above all, it's the character of the people, the alertness, the decision. And I've noticed something in the last few months, the reports that I'm getting, is that the best, most active recruiters are not the older comrades, the experienced comrades at all. They're the young, fresh people. Why is that? I'll tell you why. Because these young, fresh people got something absolutely magical. A magical thing called enthusiasm. And Ted Grant used to say, with enthusiasm, you can do anything. Without it, you can do nothing. And sometimes some of the older comrades, with all due respect, tend to maybe lose a little bit of that fire, which you should never do, comrades. Never lose your fire, never lose your passion, for any reason whatsoever. But of course, the art of politics is to always look for any opening, any possibility that offers itself. Possibilities can offer themselves very quickly, very unexpectedly. And you must grasp the opportunity with both hands. Don't hesitate, don't vacillate. You get stuck in. You seize the opportunity and exploit that opportunity for all that it's worth. That is what the British section has done. And you see the results. I won't dwell upon that. They've given marvelous examples, and I don't need to repeat those. That's the name of the game. But, as I say, we've passed through the embryonic phase now. We're entering into a new phase. As it was emphasized correctly in the last discussion, that does not mean, please communists, pay attention, it does not mean that you can now throw the books out of the window, forget about theory, just practice, just activity. No. Furthermore, no. That theory now, as somebody said, I think it was Hamid that said that, theory is more important now than what it was before. Because these young recruits, they have to be trained. Soldiers have to be trained, otherwise they're no good. As Zelensky's finding out to his cost. Poor chap, he's having hysterics, you know. Yes. In any case, you must train the communists. And by the way, there's no problem. You think these young kids are frightened of theory? They're not. On the contrary. I've seen marvelous proof. The other day, Rob Sewell showed me a letter. I've got it on my phone, I think. Of a young kid, 12 years of age, begging to join the organization and saying, well, I'm a communist and I'm interested in the ideas and so on and so forth. The only problem is, perhaps my age might be an issue, you know. It's not, of course. It's not. We want young kids of 12 and 13 and 14. And they will be the best cadres and the best recruiting sergeants. Believe me. But believe me in something else. Among these young people, there is a thirst for theory, a thirst for ideas, which only we can satisfy that thirst. You must do this with every enthusiasm. Encourage them to reading. The commoners who know me well enough. Somebody I haven't seen for a long time. First question, what are you reading now? Am I right? Geordie, am I right or am I right? He's nodding. You can't see he's nodding. I'm right, of course. Am I right? Yeah, there we are. I ask him, am I right? And he passes. Your time is up. Right, leave it there. But you see, let's carry the discussion to a different plane, a necessary plane. We call ourselves communists. Means something. We call ourselves revolutionaries. That must mean quite a lot. What is a revolution? What is it? Now, you see, in order to answer that question, you would have to live through a revolution. In order to really understand what profound, liberating experience it is for the masses, these downtrodden slaves and so on. It's a liberating experience. There is a wonderful film, I think, probably would have most have seen it, I think, called Spartacus. I think that's a wonderful film. And actually, I've studied this period in history. I wrote a book about it, as you know. I'll tell you something. That film is historically true, very true. Even in details, it's true. Not to say that it copies exactly what is stated in the books. It doesn't. There are things in that film, many things in that film never happened. And yet they are true. I'll give you a case in point. There is a point where Spartacus is speaking to his companion, his wife, Verena, I think her name was. And he's just won a string of battles. By the way, what a great man Spartacus was. Karl Marx called him the most splendid chap in all of antiquity. Just imagine, a slave that was able to defeat, not once, but many times, to inflict defeats. Sorry, am I going too fast? To inflict defeats on the greatest on the greatest army on the planet, the Roman army. He defeated it. These slaves, the Roman historians used to say that Spartacus, they didn't know much about it. They knew he was from Thrace. He was probably a Bulgarian, I guess, or a Macedonian, I don't know, from Thrace. They said that he must have been some kind of royalty. He must have been a prince of a royal family or something, I don't think so. But they had to say this, and his wife was supposed to be a magician. They had to say that, because how on earth could our armies, the great armies of Rome, be defeated by mere slaves? Mere slaves can't defeat us. Impossible. Not impossible at all. One of the mistakes in the film, one of the things, it's artistically true, but it's historically not true. At the end of that, when the slaves were defeated, the ruling class always takes terrible revenge when a revolution is defeated. Terrible revenge. History, my friends, is full of defeated slave uprisings. Full of them. And every time that occurred, the ruling class shows no mercy, slaughters men, women, and children without giving it a second thought, to spring forward to the Russian Revolution. Do you know the reason why the ruling class and why the historians show such bile and hatred and bitterness against Lenin and Trotsky? Why they accuse them of being drenched with blood, bloodthirsty monsters? Well, I'll tell you why. Because here, for the first and only time in history, apart from Spartacus, the slaves armed themselves and they fought back and they won. That's the reason for it. That's the reason for the hatred and the bile. Behind that is fear, fear, fear. As the Romans were terrified, the very idea, slaves can defeat our army. How is it possible? No, it must be magical powers involved. You don't know. Spartacus, at the end of that, they crucified, Thousands of slaves were crucified all along the Appian Way. We're in the country now. This is Italy. Right along the Appian Way. Thousands. As a warning, don't even think about this again. It's not enough to destroy a revolution. It's not enough to defeat a revolution. You must crush it utterly. You must bury it under a mound of corpses and a mound of lies and slanders. That's the reason. That's the only reason. But the memory remains. And you see, the truth is, in the books, Spartacus was not crucified. He died a hero's death, fighting in the first line of struggle against terrible odds, and was cut down. He tried to fight his way through to kill the general Crassus, and he was killed by the Romans. And when the Romans, the battlefield was full of dead bodies, Romans and slaves, when they examined the bodies of the slaves, you know what they found? All their wounds were in the front. All the slaves' wounds, not in the back. They never ran away. They never surrendered. What a colossal inspiration that is. Yes, my friends, revolution is an inspiration. But to come back to my point, in that film, that great film, which you must see, there's one scene which I find particularly moving and particularly true. Spartacus is speaking to his wife, to his companion, Verena. And she said, well, aren't you happy? You won the battle? He said, no. We won the battle, yes. We won many battles. But we haven't really conquered what we want. What do you mean? She said, I can't read. Will you teach me to read? That conversation, I am 100% certain, never occurred. Never occurred. No, don't laugh. It never occurred, and it's a profound truth. It tells you more about the truth of Spartacus and the slaves and all the other uprisings than anything else you can read. Because a revolution is a profoundly liberating act, a real act of emancipation, where millions of people, ordinary men and women, rise above themselves in struggle, in common struggle, and they discover powers inside themselves they never knew existed. They cease to become slaves and begin to become free men and women. That's the meaning of a revolution. That's what it's about. That's what we're fighting for. Not just higher wages or better health and the rest, because of course we're in favor of those things too. But no, a revolution is much, much more than that. And I have satisfied myself. By the way, there's a wonderful expression by the English poet William Wordsworth. As a young man, he was present in the French Revolution in the early stages. He was carried away with it. And he wrote in his great poem, The Prelude, I wonder if the translators can handle this. He wrote a wonderful phrase. He said, bliss is joy. Bliss 'twas in that dawn to be alive. But to be young was very heaven. Words of William Wordsworth, who lived through this and felt it. That's what a revolution is. Years, along with many other old Bolsheviks. She was bent with age, and you see the suffering was etched on her face. And she wouldn't talk about the prison camps, of course. Talk about things like that. But one time I only met her a couple of times. I asked her once, forgotten her name now, but it doesn't matter. Irina Ivanovna, whatever her name was. What was it like? What was the October Revolution? And her face lit up. Really, her face was transformed. There's almost a light coming out of it. She said, you can't imagine what it was. I can't describe it to you. She used a Russian expression. It's difficult to translate, I think. Kakoi padyom, she said. The word padyom is like a spiritual uplift of the whole people. Kakoi padyom. I hear that voice now. I see her face in front of me now. And then her face immediately changed. The old expression came back again. The old crushed old woman came back again. And she said in a voice of bitterness, "Not like now, not like now." But you see, don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. The American ambassador in Paris, I think his name was Carlucci. I might be mistaken. I think that's right. He was alarmed. He went to see de Gaulle, the strong man. President de Gaulle, with the armies at his disposal and so on. He said, what's happening? What the hell what's happening in France? You know what how de Gaulle answered? De Gaulle was depressed, and he said, "It's all up, it's all finished. The game's up. In a few days, the communists will be in power." That's what he told Carlucci. And that was true. It ought to have been true. If it wasn't true, it was only because of one reason, and that was the betrayal of the leaders of the French Communist Party. That's all. That's all. Yeah, I saw it. I saw it on the streets of Paris. I saw it again in the streets of Lisbon. In 1975, I went there after the Portuguese Revolution. Streets full of a mass of people discussing politics on the street after 50 years of dictatorship. Suddenly people were free. You'd have a young man writing on a wall, student probably, writing a long manifesto on a wall with chalk. Hardly read his writing. Huge crowd would gather around to, "What's he writing? What's this? What's this?" And they'd be discussing. That's a revolution. And I saw it, of course, I experienced. And Anna, my dear comrade and companion, and, well, I'll say no more. Nobody will know what this international owes to Comrade Anna. But anyway, when we met in the underground conditions in Spain. Anna will remember. I don't know that maybe someone else. No, perhaps not. Time passes. That was a revolution. I tried to express that in a book which I wrote with Anna's help, called The Great Betrayal. If you haven't read it, read it. That tells you what a revolution's like. Yeah. Anyway, this was a revolution. I can't go into that. Read the book, you'll find out all about it. It's partly autobiographical, that book. But in any case, this is what we are fighting for. This is what when we say fighting, somebody asked this morning, what is a fighting organization, a fighting organization, a fighting party? Yeah, I don't know. One thing I'm certain of, however, we are in a war. Be sure of it. We're in a war. A class war, and there is no war more brutal and more savage and more inhuman than a war between the classes. Starting with Spartacus, going through the Paris Commune, all of it. A word of warning to you. If you've come here to vote for the setting up of a new international communist, that's a great thing, by the way. That's not a small thing. You're not coming here just to go through the motions, but, oh yes, all in favor, please, so. No. You are committing yourself to a cause and to a life which will not be easy. If anyone here is looking for a quiet, easy life, I've got an awful piece of news for you. You have been born at the wrong time of history, my friend. This is not such a time. This is a time of ferocious class struggles, and very serious tests will come to us, you know. Talk about sacrifices and so on. I met many people who made sacrifices, real sacrifices. I once knew a communist, not a young man, in Pakistan. I think he was a Sindhi from Sindh, an old communist, and he was arrested by the police and taken to the fortress of Lahore and brutally tortured. Terrible, inhuman tortures for weeks, months, I don't know how long. And when they got tired of torturing him, amusing themselves by torturing this poor man, he was then put in solitary confinement. Do you know what that means? You think you do, you don't. That's like being buried alive. You're taken to a small stone cell. You receive, the guards will give you your food, such food there is, twice a day maybe. Not a single word is spoken to you. Imagine. It's like being in a grave, alive. I'll never forget what this man told me. He said, this went on for years, not a few months. He said, there were some days I was hoping that they would open the door and take me out to the torture chamber to torture me so that I could hear a human voice. That is a sacrifice that him and many others have made like that. We don't ask you to do that kind of thing, not at the moment. But this is a serious question. This is a very serious question. And frankly, we become a bit soft, because of the advanced capitalist countries. A certain softness has crept into society, which I don't think is healthy. People have become so sensitive now, sensitive souls, girls and boys in the universities. You dare not express, you can't call anybody anything for fear that it will damage their psyche or something like that. Send them straight to the nearest psychiatrist, Oh, no. Politically incorrect. Buck. Oh, I'm so sensitive. Oh, please, God. Jesus Christ. Jesus is Christ. Now, look, there are even places, what do they call them in the universities? They demand safe places you can feel comfortable. Pardon?
Safe spaces.
Safe spaces. Safe places, safe spaces. He's into political correctness, this chap. What do I care? Okay. Time's up. He's a terrible man, He is. But you see, safe spaces. Well, look, I'm very sorry to inform you, girls and boys, in this organization there's no safe spaces. And if you want to feel comfortable, you come to the wrong place. I don't want you to be comfortable at all. I want you to be uncomfortable. Good God. This is a war. Get your heads around it. And there's no room here for softness or nonsense of any sort. You've got to toughen up. You've got to understand that if you're genuine, you throw free, we're a fighting organization, Can I have another cup of coffee? Where's my cappuccino? Fighting. They couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag, half of them. No. You see, I'm looking around this hall today, and what do I see? I don't see English people, Welsh people, Scots people, French people, black, white, brown, Brazilians. That's a good question. What color is a Brazilian? I never quite worked that one out. All colors, I think, all colors. I don't see Russians, Chinese. I don't see young or old, gay or straight, trans or untrans. What's the opposite of trans? Somebody tell me. Pardon? Sick. I must belong to the sick party then. Never mind, you know what I mean. No, but I am attempting to make a serious point. No. I don't see any of those things at all. You know what I see? I see soldiers in the international army of the proletariat. That's what I see. And of course, we expect communists to act as soldiers in a disciplined manner. You're fighting for the most important cause on earth. Before us, there are very powerful enemies, and therefore there's no room for sloppiness. There's no room for indiscipline. There's no room for softness if we're going to win this battle. And therefore, I expect every one of you act as a soldier. Bear in mind just one idea, and I'll finish my remarks. I've said too much already. It doesn't matter. I want you to pause before I say anything. Pause for a moment. Think about what I'm about to say. If you vote this organization, you are committing yourself to something great, something far bigger than yourself, something far more important than your petty interest or whatever you might be interested in. Okay? Lenin used to say that every communist, I think I said this the other day, it doesn't matter, every communist ought to be a professional revolutionary. What did he mean by that? It didn't mean that you have to accept money for the organization for your services. Some of us do, you know. Not very much, but we do. It doesn't mean that at all. What he means, to be a communist is not a formal question, not a question of signing a little document and getting a little card in your pocket. You are dedicating your life. Your entire life must be now subordinated to this great cause. And it will not be easy. And don't run away with that idea. I'm not offering you any easy thing. I'm not offering you an easy life. I'm not offering you to be comfortable. I'm offering you a hard life of struggle and sacrifice. That's what I'm offering you. That's the only thing. But at the end of this hard life of struggle and sacrifice, there is a glorious goal ahead of us. You know what that is? It's the lifting of humanity. It's in the face of this old Russian woman that I spoke of. It's on the streets of Paris. It's on the streets of Spartacus. It's all of these glorious things. It's the Paris Commune. And we must rise, all of us, must lift ourselves to that level, to the level that's demanded by history and the stern tasks which are imposed upon us by history. That's the meaning of this conference. That's the meaning of this international. And how are we to succeed? The answer is in your hands. Don't look at the person next to you. I'm speaking to each one of you individually. You must all individually commit yourself firmly to carrying out all the tasks which are needed. Build the greatest thing on earth, which is the new international, dedicated to the greatest cause on earth, which is the sacred cause of the emancipation of the working class throughout the world. For this cause, comrades, I invite you to dedicate yourself at this moment in time. Comrades, long live the working class, long live communism, long live the Revolutionary Communist International. Get up. Right, that's enough of that. Now comes the real hard bit. I would like you to sing a song known as the International. I would like you to sing it properly. Imagine that you're all Welsh. I want you to raise the roof. Yes? Okay, let's go. Arise, you starting from the farmhouse. Arise, the German rose and fall. Arisen and revolt the and the glass they love your found. Then away with all your superstition, slender masses arise. With change forth at the open day, shepherds spread their dust to run the prize. And harmless confidence, and the last fight left us friends. The Internationale unites the human race. That harmless confidence, and the last fight left us friends. The Internationale unites the human race. Avanti popolo, alla riscossa, bandiera rossa, avanti popolo, alla riscossa, bandiera rossa, trionferà. Bandiera rossa, la trionferà, bandiera rossa, la trionferà, bandiera rossa, la trionferà, e viva Now you have to get your singing voice in order, ready for this evening, no? Let's have a few decent songs this evening. Not now. This evening. Okay. See you in the party.